All praise going on is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and peace to you. In the name of Jesus, this is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. I count it to be blessed each and every single time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's lesson. And it is called The Lake of Fire, Why You Must Fear the Most High. The Lake of Fire, Why You Must Fear the Most High. You know, if the Most High be just, he has to have a punishment. And his punishment is a perfect punishment. That punishment is the lake of fire. This is the reason why all should serve him. You know, and the Bible tells you that fear is the beginning of knowledge. And, you know, when you really understand what he is, the fear of the Lord, the beginning of knowledge, you really should understand what he can do to you. He didn't just create you, he can destroy you. So peace, brother that's listening. It's good to see you both there. So I want to start off in Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, and find out why we should fear God. The Bible tells us clearly. This is Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, verse 13. It says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." Okay, so this is why we should fear God. He said, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So when you think about what our universal purpose is, it's to fear him. Then he tells you why. He said, "For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." Okay, so obviously you have eternal life and his kingdom if it is good, but what if it's evil? It's the lake of fire. Let's go to Luke, the 12th chapter. And see more about this judgment. What is this particular judgment? And he tells you here also who you should fear. Who should you fear? The Most High. Why? Because of this judgment. This is Luke, the 12th chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 4. He says, the good doctor writes, "And I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do." So man can kill you, man can torture you, but after you're dead, there's nothing else he can do. So he said, "I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do." But the Messiah goes on to say, "But I will forewarn you whom ye shall fear." You better fear him. He said, "Let us say the conclusion of the whole matter, fear God and keep his commandments. For he shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." He said, "But I say unto you, I will forewarn you whom ye shall fear." Fear him. Who is the him? Talking about the Most High. "Which after he hath killed, have power to cast into hell. Yea, I say unto you, fear him." The one that can put you into the lake of fire, brothers and sisters. That's the one you should fear. What are the conditions of the lake of fire? This is Mark, the gospel according to Mark. So you got two resurrections. You got the resurrection of life, and we read today about the resurrection of damnation. This is Mark, the 9th chapter. What are the conditions? Here, the Messiah again warned. Again, the Messiah warned. I'm having all kinds of problems. Here, the Messiah is warning you about what you need to do to avoid this punishment. Okay, this is Mark, the 9th chapter. Mark, the 9th chapter, verse 43. It says, "And if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed." What life? Eternal life. "Than having two hands to go into hell." What hell? The lake of fire. "Into the fire that never shall be quenched, where the worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched." So what is he telling you? Is he telling you that you literally need to cut off your hand, or that when you're going to go into the kingdom with no hand? No, what he's telling you is you must at all costs bring your body into subjection. Why must you bring your body into subjection? Because you being led by the carnal lusts and your desires cause you to sin. The wage or the payment for sin is death, as Paul tells us. That death is referring to the second death, the lake of fire. And he's telling you, we all must bring our bodies into subjection. And by all means, whatever it takes, you need to do. He says, cut it off. Is he telling you to dismember yourself? No, but he's showing you the severity of the situation. Because if you cannot bring yourself into subjection, if you cannot put reins on this carnal flesh, you're going to end up in the lake of fire. So that's why it says, if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than having two hands going to hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched. When the worm died not, the fire is not quenched. Verse 45 says, and if thy foot offend thee, cut it off. He says hand in one place. He says foot in another, whatever it is. Whatever it is. Yeah, I have to go fix that, brother. Thank you. Whatever it is, appreciate it. I don't know what, man. Whatever it is, you have to bring it into subjection. It's not the same for all people. Some people, they can't stop lying. Some people, they commit adultery. They have sexual immorality. Some people, they are thieves. Whatever it is that's causing you to sin, you have to stop it. And if thy eye offend thee, pluck it out. Again, the severity of it. It is better for thee to enter into the kingdom of God with one eye than having two eyes to be cast into the hellfire, where the worm died not and the fire is not quenched. And again, you're not going to be entering into the kingdom. You're going to have a body like God. You're not going to enter into the kingdom like you and walking around in the kingdom or in the kingdom as an amputee. That's not what's going to happen. Okay? He's telling you have to bring your body into subjection at all costs. Now, let's go to Matthew, the 25th chapter, just to understand who the Lord was prepared for. This is Matthew, the 25th chapter and verse 31, because here the Messiah tells us about his, he tells us about what's going to happen when he returns and how he's going to make this great separation. This is Matthew 25 and verse 31. It says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. So he's going to reign in his kingdom. We'll say it again. He's going to reign in his kingdom right here on this earth. And he says again, and when the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. He's going to sit on the throne of his father David. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. So in other words, the sheep are the righteous. They represent or are symbolic of the righteous on the right hand, and the goats are the wicked on the left. Okay, so what does he say? Let's keep reading. Verse 34. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come ye blessed of my father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Okay, and this, if you continue to read, is based upon your treatment, and at least in this, what he gives here, this is based upon your treatment of your fellow man. He said, if I was hungry, he gave me meat. I was thirsty, and he gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. He goes on to tell you that very last said to you in verse 40, insomuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. But now what does he say to the goats? Verse 41, then shall he say also unto them on the left hand. Now, who is this? Who we're going to find out where you're going, the goats or the wicked, where they're going, and who the lake of fire was prepared for. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, these are the goats, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire. We read earlier, that he kept reading, where the worm died not and the fire is not quenched. Here, fire is not quenched is replaced with everlasting fire. Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire. Then it says, I'm prepared for the devil and his angels. Why? Because of how you treated your fellow man. If I was hungry and you gave me no meat, I was thirsty and you gave me no drink, I was a stranger and you took me not in, naked and you clothed me not, sick and in prison, and you visited me not. Then shall they say also, and then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered or thirst or stranger or naked or sick or in prison, and did not minister unto thee. Then shall he answer them, saying, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. So just like the reward, both are rewards. It's a good reward and it's a bad reward. Eternal life, when you reign with him forever and ever, that is eternal. So it is, we'll see also, with the lake of fire. He said everlasting punishment. See, this is not something that, a punishment by a parent when you were a child, it only lasted for so long. You grounded, it only a month or several weeks or whatever it was. Even if it was some corporal punishment or some physical discipline there, that didn't last but for a short time. Eventually, that pain subsided. But when it comes to the lake of fire, that does not end, brothers and sisters. Let's go to Revelation, the 20th chapter. Because one of the things that's a misconception, one misconception is that people in the lake of fire right now. No, there hasn't been a resurrection. The dead are in the grave until the time of the resurrection. You got the first resurrection when he returns, and then you got the second resurrection 1,000 years later. Now we want to find out who are the first ones to be cast into the lake of fire. This is Revelation, the 20th chapter, and I want to pick it up at verse. I'm gonna pick it up at verse 11 just to give you a prophetic context here. It says in verse 11, Revelation 19 and verse 11, it says, and I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he sat upon it, was called Faithful and True, and Unrighteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes was a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Okay, so now, and he had, in verse 16, he had the vesture on his thigh name written King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This is when he returns to wage war, to establish his kingdom here on earth. This is talking about the Mashiach, or the Messiah. So when he comes back to wage war, it says something. In verse 19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on a horse and against his army. Right? This is to the point. Remember, you read in Psalms 110, we says, Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. This is when this part is taking place. He's gonna make his enemies his footstool. And the beast and the false prophet that rose to prominence during the time of the Great Tribulation, and all these armies that he's gathered together in the valleys of Jehoshaphat, he will judge them there. It says in verse 20, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him. Again, this is the time of the Great Tribulation, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So now these are the first ones to be cast into the lake of fire. Okay. Side note, you read Revelation, the 14th chapter, just so we understand something here, because I mentioned the mark of the beast. This is something you need to know about the mark of the beast. Verse 9, Revelation 14 and 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receive the mark of his name. So understand, if you take the mark of the beast, you damn yourself to hell. Okay. However, you won't be cast into that punishment until a later time, until the end of the 1,000 years of peace. But now I wanted to point that out because I mentioned the mark of the beast, and it's the severity there. Now let's go to back to what I just read, because it says, and the beast was taken with him, the false prophet. I'm in Revelation 19 and 20. the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. So now they are the first ones to be cast into the lake of fire. During this 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ, they are there. And when it says, behold, the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our Lord and of Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. The Messiah, he at his second coming, he establishes his kingdom on the earth. He establishes proper worship on the earth. But we want to go to Isaiah the 66th chapter to find out, what do these people see as they go up to worship him? And I say people because you're going to have flesh and blood beings that are left after he comes back in wrath, taking vengeance on them, in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them in the name of God, and that obey not his gospel. Okay? But also you have the first resurrection. Okay, so now we're in Isaiah the 66th chapter. The knowledge of the Lord is going to cover the earth like the waters cover the sea. But what are they going to see as they go up to worship? You read in Isaiah too. You read in Micah, and how they're going to go up and they're going to seek him. They're going to try to worship him. Okay, it says, and it shall come in Isaiah 2:2, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, because that's where he's reigning from. So when they go up to worship, what are they going to see? Isaiah the 66th chapter. Isaiah the 66th chapter, we're going to pick it up at verse 22. Isaiah the 66th chapter and verse 22. He says, let's pick it up in verse 23. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. That's during his kingdom. Okay? I'm going to just read into it. Verse 22. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. And what are they going to see? Verse 24. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worms shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrent unto all flesh. That clearly is an illusion, or that describes the lake of fire. But who is in the lake of fire? We just read in Revelation the 19th chapter. The beast and the false prophet, they were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. Now, let's go to Revelation, the 20th, back to Revelation, and go to the 20th chapter, because we understand they are not, so they are in the lake of fire. But now let's see who else is cast into the lake, going to be cast into the lake of fire. This is Revelation, the 20th chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 10. So now it says in verse 10, and the devil, Revelation 20:10, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. Matter of fact, let me pick it up in verse 7 to give you a time frame. Revelation 20 and verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, what 1,000 years? The 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ, which is what the 7-day Sabbath points to. That time of rest. That's why I said my rest shall be glorious. That's why I said you got to enter into that rest. It's a rest to come. So when you keep out observing the Sabbath, that's what it's pointing to. This is the time we're reading about here. Revelation, the 20th chapter, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. And what's he going to do? He's going to deceive those at Gog and Magog. And they're going to go up to Jerusalem to battle. Because remember, you still have flesh and blood on the earth. It says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about in the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So the Father, who's still in heaven at this time, he's raining down fire on them. Then it says, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. Now you got Satan in the hell, the lake of fire. Where's he been this whole time? On the earth, walking to and fro, up and down in it. That's what he's, as a roaring lion seeking who he may devour. That's Job tells us that. Peter tells us that. That's where he's been on this earth at the end of the 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ, Satan, who was put out of commission during that 1,000 years until the very end, is going to be cast into the lake of fire. Well, who are the beast and the false prophet? Are the same ones that you read about in Isaiah 66. When they go up to worship, they're going to see the beast and the false prophet burning there as incentives to remind you just what happens when you don't do what you're supposed to do. And then 1,000 years, they burning later. They still there burning. It's like the burning bush. Most I'm going to see how this bush is burning and it's not consumed. That's how your body will be. You have to have a changing body to have that. Only thing is you're going to be cast into the lake of fire. And it was prepared for the devil and his angels because they are eternal beings. They're spiritual beings. So he had to have an everlasting punishment for them. And when man sinned, he got caught up in the punishment for the devil and his angels. So it says, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone where the beast and the false prophet are and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. See, and the devil understood and his minion understood. That's why you read in Revelation, the 12th chapter, it says that he was wroth with the woman. It says, because he knew it in verse 12, because he knew that he had but a short time. You read another place where the one fallen angel, he speaks out. He said, we know who thou art, thou Christ, or thou Son of God. Hast thou come to torment us before the time? They are under the chains of darkness. That's why you don't see them, but they all on this earth. They under the chains of darkness until that time. Okay? Until what time? Until it's time for them to be cast into the lake of fire. So now, that's in you want to read that? That's in Jude chapter. There's only one chapter in verse 6. So in Revelation 20 and verse 11, now what is everybody else? What about the ones that took the mark of the beast? What about the wicked? This is Revelation the 20th chapter and verse 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And now that hell's not talking about hell, the lake of fire. Okay? Because hell is a state of condition. The grave is referred to as hell. Jonah cried out of the belly of hell, but hell, the lake of fire, is the worst condition one can be in. And some might say, well, how could he have such a terrible punishment? He is not just unless he has a punishment. This is justice. So it says, and the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. That's why it's the great white throne judgment. It says, and they were judged, every man according to their works, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death, as I mentioned earlier. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life, that same one that Moses talked about, he said, Lord, blot me out of that book. He was trying to intercede on behalf of people. It don't work like that. Everybody is going to die for themselves. So it says in verse 15, and whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. It is the lake of fire, brothers and sisters. This is the reason why we must fear him. This is the reason. Let me see what you're talking about, brother, real quick. And with that, let me say this. We're at the Household of Faith, meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. If you've been edified through the ministry, you can leave a donation on our website, www.israelteach.org. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry. Peace to you. Peace to all the brethren that's listening and the sister that may be listening. Peace to Brother Dan. It's good to see you there. And Brother Nicodemus, and of course Isaiah and Brother Leo. So you say, Brother Isaiah said, got into an argument with the Seventh-day Adventists, and I tried to tell them that Malachi 4:3 was not literal. They said that God is going to burn and destroy all sinners. So Micah. Oh, Malachi. He said Malachi. I'm in Mike. He said Malachi. All praise to the Most High, brother. Malachi 4:3. Okay. So let's just pick it up at verse 1. So in verse 1, Malachi 4, Jesus, Malachi 4 and verse 1, it says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye shall," verse 3, which was one you said it was not literal. It says, "And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts." Okay, so you saying it's not literal. But one thing you need to understand is that when he comes back, he's not coming back by himself. He's coming back with armies. Those armies include angels and resurrected beings. Just like Jacob was with 2 bands prior to, and you read, I think it's in Genesis. The similar thing is happening in the sense where he had 2 bands behind him. Let me see something here. I think it's 32. Yeah. And when Jacob saw them, he said in verse 2, "This is God's host," and he called the name Mahanaim, which means 2 hosts or 2 bands. You had Jacob and all of them, and then you had the angels. Well, at that time, when he returned back, he said, "If it was time for my kingdom to do my servants fight." Habakkuk said they will invade them with your troops. He's coming back with armies, and John the Revelator says. And those armies, again, include, they all coming down, everybody coming down to wage war on this earth. Okay, so it's talking about you being victorious in this day of the Lord when he intervenes in the affairs of man, and he's coming back in wrath. Let me read something here in Psalms 148 or 149, excuse me. Psalms 149 division. It says, in verse 5, in verse 4, it says, "For the Lord taketh pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation." So the meek, the poor in spirit, are going to be saved. But then he says something else. "Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth and a 2-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people." So execute vengeance upon the heathen or the nations. And it said, "And punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise you, the Lord." See, again, he's coming back to do all these things. He keep talking about him coming back in war, but you're going to be coming back with him. You're going to meet him in the air, and then everybody going to come down and take over this world. So when it's saying again, you are with him in this endeavor. It's not like it said God is going to burn and destroy all sinners. He's coming back to destroy this. The earth going to be burning, a few men left. It do say that. It does say that. So that's what he's coming. That's how he's going to do it. Just like, so if you want to know what he's going to do or what it's going to look like, you see the foreshadowing of that with Sodom and Gomorrah. When he rained down fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, that's how he's going to rain down fire on this whole earth. When you want to look at the scope or the magnitude of a thing of that coming, it says the earth is burned and few men left. You want to see the scope of it? Go read about Noah and how many people died. Noah and his family was saved. His wife and his 3 sons and their wives. That was it. So That's just Malachi 4:3 is referring to just prior to the second coming. Okay, so I mean, so oftentimes he would speak figurative languages all throughout the Bible.